I mean, if I wasn't, we'd do a whole show without recording it.
This is the Todd Capital Millionaire Podcast. This is episode 117. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Todd Millionaire, the founder and the director of the Todd Capital Investment Club, also the founder of Todd Acquisitions and Todd Capital Cuts. We need shirts, man. Make sure you all leave us a rating or review. We got to double our reviews in the next 2 weeks. Got to make that happen for us. Preferably a 5-star review, but leave an honest review as well. We want to know where we can improve. So if you see something, say something. Thank you all for tuning in. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of successful African-American investors and business owners. With us today, we have Darian and Ashley, who are a married couple that invest in real estate in Baltimore City. They currently have 8 total doors and a few other deals coming in their pipeline. They began investing in 2017 with little to no money and have used multiple types of financing to continue to scale their business. They are currently completing a rehab on a 4-unit building and closing on another 4-unit within the next week. So welcome to the show, guys.
Hey. Thank you. Pleasure to be on the show, man. It's so surreal. I know. We get to like virtually all your podcasts. So.
That's cool. The internet is powerful, man.
Definitely.
Anything you want to say, Rashawn Scott, before we kick it off?
I'm excited to have you guys on here and learn more about you. So let's get going.
Nice.
So, how did you guys get started? What did that first deal look like?
Yeah. So our first deal, So pretty much we started off, we were straight out of college. We actually had started working before me. I was still in school. So she was in the 9-to-5 grind. And then I was studying in school. It took me, I majored in industrial engineering, but I took the long track. It took me how many years did it take? 7 years, 6 or 7 years to graduate. And it was a whole lot, a lot of backstory, a lot of things that happened that led up to that. But it took me a while. So I had a lot of time to give thought to this career that I was prepping myself for. So fast forward a few months later, end up graduating, found a job, had a 2.5-hour commute one way in the morning, found out quickly, this wasn't the move. This wasn't the type of life I wanted to live. I used to see people literally in their 40s, 50s, 60s on driving in traffic, and they just look miserable. And I was miserable, and I'm I just started. I can't nearly be as miserable as them. So I'm this isn't something that I want. And then that's luckily Ashley, shared the same sentiments. So really, we kept looking for, what can we do? What kind of business venture can we get involved in? And then that led us to real estate, started listening to podcasts, Bigger Pocket Podcast, all types of podcasts, just the real estate guys. Yeah, Dave Ramsey. A lot of the same people probably your listeners listen to. So that's really how we got started, just educating ourselves. And that was a big piece. We spent probably it probably was 6 months to 12 months, just getting material, getting different content, just learning, reading books. We took a long amount of time to kind of figure out, okay, so, how can we get into real estate, but win in real estate? How can we leverage our strengths and kind of mitigate our weaknesses? What's the best way to get into this game? And so we did a lot of time, in the front end, we spent a lot of time kind of just doing research. But yeah, so then that kind of led us to okay, we didn't want to get paralysis analysis, right? So, it was one day, it was a Friday coming back home from work. And it literally took me 5 hours to get home. And I'm I've been listening to all these podcasts for all these months. I'm stuck here in traffic. At some point, either I'm going to keep talking about oh, this is a good idea, or I'm going to actually start taking action. So that day I got home. I was like, babe, you know what? Let's just reach out to realtor and see if we can figure out what properties are for sale. That's a solid first step, and it doesn't cost any money. So
right.
We can do that. Yep. So fast forward, we ended up looking probably at 20 houses before we actually like found one that we ran the numbers. We were using like a Bigger Pockets tool, one of their like rental cost rental calculators. Plugged everything in there, and then we was like, oh man, these numbers actually like make sense. Like we would actually make a profit, a couple $100 every month after paying out, you know, all the expenses. So then we put in an offer.
For a 3-unit building?
Yeah, for a 3-unit building. So it was a 3-unit. This was our very first property. 3-unit building is over in Northeast Baltimore, right on the corner, for everybody that's familiar with Baltimore, right on the corner of like Bel Air, Moravia, by the Crab Shack. So it's like, it was like a decent street, right? You know, Baltimore is very block by blockish, as you guys are aware. So it's like, you know, it was a good street. It was like really good street. You can tell people actually like cared about their homes. You know, they had like lawn contests. So it was a cool, nice little block.
That's a good idea. A lawn contest.
Yep. Yeah. So that's how we kind of got into our first deal. It was a lot of back and forth negotiations with the seller.
Yes.
I love negotiating. I love trying to get a good deal. Like, so that's something to where, you know, we put in an initial offer. We were a bit aggressive. I think the guy was asking
$250.
Yeah, but it was listed for a couple months.
Yeah.
So we put in an offer like at $200. Got it under contract for $200. Got our inspection, which for, you know, all the newbies getting started, pretty much like after you get a property under contract, you go into your due diligence period, right? So normally, like, this is all in your contract. You'll have like X number of days to do a rental inspection, or a property inspection, right? They see the condition of the property. You'll have X number of days to do all different types of tests. Like some places they have like a radon test, like a gas test. Other places, even you can even have a financing contingency. And a lot of these are good just to kind of give you to mitigate your risk. Like when you put a down payment down, so the way if something does go wrong, you can get your money back. So it was during that period. We ended up finding like there was a few issues of like things that needed to be improved on the house, some delayed maintenance, some things that the guy didn't take care of. So what ended up happening was we got it. We negotiated it down to another $50,000 just because all the delayed maintenance. So we end up getting under contract we end up going to the closing table at $150 purchase price. And we did the FHA program. So, you know, for you guys who aren't familiar with the FHA program, it only requires 3.5% down. So literally, you know, we're going 3.5% down to 150 real quick. That's about like, what, 5K? 6K. So so we did that. We also, right, doing all this research, right, spending all this time, like, looking up stuff, we found out that, we can apply for grants, right, because we were going to move into the house, right? So we were going to actually live in one unit and rent the other units out, right, house hack. So we was like, so let's go apply for grant programs, right? And you want to do this before you actually put it under contract. So don't go put a house under contract and then, like, start looking up the grants. Go to your lender, get pre-approved by a lender, right? If you don't know a lender, hit up a realtor. They can connect you with a lender. And then after that, ask the financing, the bank, ask them if they know or if they use grants. You want to work with a bank that's going to use grants. They're going to allow you to use grants, right? And this is going to give you the ability to get into this house for virtually like no cost. So so that's what ended up happening, right? So we only needed $5K down. With closing costs, I think it was another like $3K. So it was like $8K total. We ended up getting a grant that covered most of that cost. And then we actually, there was something that happened last minute with the seller. And this seller he was very motivated, right? The property was listed for a few months already. So we negotiated with the seller and we ended up getting a check back at the closing table for like, what was it, like $3,000 or something. Yeah. So literally, like, we were all into this deal for like maybe like $1,000.
Wow.
Nice.
That's cool.
Nice.
That's how we got started. That was our first deal.
How long ago was that?
That was back in early 2017.
Okay. That's what's up. So, so you live in Baltimore now also?
So we actually live like in the county area. So we were able to stay in that in the 3-unit for about a year. And then I was able to use FHA for our primary residence. So right now we live about maybe 15, 20 minutes away from downtown.
Nice. And so you guys have been investing for early 2017. So
we need to talk about the flows on that first house. We didn't talk about the renting it out and
just cut me out then, why don't you?
Well, I don't want us to move to more deals because I think we didn't really talk about that. We just talked about how they acquired it and the money they made at the closing table. But what about, like, how did the deal work for that? Were you guys able to live for free? Were you able to cash flow? And how did that look for you guys?
You know, it's so funny. Anytime that I ask about numbers, Charles gets on me. He like, dang, why you got to be out in these people's business?
No, last time she was kind of digging. Anyway.
Oh yeah, no worries. All right, so when we first started off, right, we had to there was a tenant there. She was renting all 3 units, but we found out within the first month that we had to, we were going to move into one of these units, so we scaled her down. We talked to her, she couldn't afford to rent out all 3 units, so we ended up scaling her down to 1 unit. So for that 1 unit, we're getting $1,350. Right, so it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's about 30% higher than what like market rent is for the area, but we can charge her that because she's operating an assisted living facility out of there. So we moved into the top unit, and she was renting 2 units. She couldn't afford the second unit. I'm sorry.
She's renting them, but she's also sub-renting them.
Exactly.
So she's renting and then she's renting the rooms out individually.
Exactly.
She house hacking her rental.
She house hacking y'all house hack.
Exactly. So it's a win-win, right? But you know, even till today, she's one of our tenants that she pays later in the month, and she has issues. She's working with a huge local hospital, and they're notorious for paying their subs late. So we've had to work with her in order to create that win-win, right? Because instead of like just kicking her out, she has access to the funds. It's just the ebbs and flows and like how her checks come. Sometimes they come late. So we like with her, she's a little bit more hands-on, but since we're in the process of just trying to get as much cash flow as possible, we're willing to give her a little bit more attention, especially since we self-manage, you know, to kind of like to get those returns, those additional returns. So right now it's worth it for us. I don't know how we may be feeling in a few years, but right now, you know, we do what we got to do. So we had her in 1 unit. She was in 2. She couldn't afford the second unit, so we scaled her down to 1. Her rent remained the same. It remained at $1,350, and then we ended up renting the second unit out to another family. So this was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Oh, I'm sorry, 3-bedroom, 1-bath. And we ended up renting. How much did we rent out? $1,000. Yep. So $1,000. So what's that? $2,650, and our $2,350. Yep. So $2,350 a month, and our how much was our note?
Our mortgage at the time was what? $1,200.
Yeah, $1,200. Yeah, $1,200. So I mean, you know, you still got to factor in repairs, maintenance. You still got to factor in like capex and all that stuff. You want to put all that stuff in your numbers too. But that's how much we were cash flowing, assuming, you know, everything went well, assuming we didn't have any vacancies, assuming we didn't have any repairs, and you know, things like that, which is never the case. So really, what we do for, you know, all of our properties is, once we get in there, we want to make sure that we got significant cash flow, and then immediately we start saving as much cash as possible for our whenever stuff happens.
Rainy day fund.
Yeah, rainy day fund. So whether that be like 5, 10, 20K, depending on the size of the property, you want to save that up and just have that in cash storage just in case something happens. And then, you know, then we'll be more comfortable recognizing, like, you know, oh, this is actually whatever the different, was it 1,200? Mm-hmm. Yeah, whatever the delta is, whatever our profit is, this is actually profit that we'll be like, you know, exploiting. But right now, everything is all cash in. We just
all money in,
all cash, save it all cash, and just trying to build.
Yeah.
My favorite part about the house hack isn't just the cash flow, isn't just the appreciation. It's the fact that you literally have no housing expense, and so all the money that you make is yours. Like,
yeah.
If you have 2 incomes coming into the house, like 100% of that is yours. And if you live in a state like California where people are spending like 50% of their income just in housing expense, to eliminate that, you open up so much to you. There are no student loan problems when you don't have a housing expense. There are no financial problems when you have no housing expense. So I think that is something people look over that a lot. they're like, I needed the cash flow. I needed to get that extra source of passive income. It's like, well, bro, like, how about you just keep the income that you make? That's a win in itself. Not having to pay your rent is a win.
See, that's a very good point, man. Like, you know, there's two parts of the game, right? Like, either you can increase your revenue or you can, like, you know, decrease your expenses. So, like, starting out, some people may not have an idea of, like, a side hustle or something that they can do. So then it is easier just to focus on, okay, how can I decrease my expenses, right? If you got, like, you know, a stable job, you've been there for a couple of years and you've been renting, it depends on which market that you're in. I don't know, probably not where you're at, Charles. It depends. I mean,
it's the devil.
Crazy, but you know, like in Baltimore, you could definitely find a house for cheaper than what you would pay in rent. You know, this is like personal experience. So like even right now, the numbers still make sense. So I mean, you know, it may make sense in someone's journey for them to focus on, okay, how can I decrease my expenses, and then, you know, once that's tight, then transition over to, okay, how can I start increasing my revenue? You know,
Absolutely. Oh, so what was your next question, Rashonda Scott? The one that I cut off before we started talking about cash flow.
Look, I'm like, it was like 10 minutes ago. I wanted to ask you guys in regards to your transition, because I was going to actually transition into just the overall portfolio and kind of what that looks like now. I think you guys mentioned 8 doors at the beginning. Do you guys self-manage? Do you property manage? You know, what is that looking like?
Yeah. Yep. So we self-manage. Right now, our portfolio consists of 3 properties. So one is a 3-unit. The other is the 4-unit that we're working on. So if you guys check us out on Instagram, at Kemetic Capital, you'll see that project in its entirety. And then, So, and then we have a condo. This a deal that just kind of like came to me from just networking, sharing our story. End up, you know, coworkers, mother-in-law, her sister was moving out and she had to move into like a nursing home. So she wanted to do something with the home, keep it in the family. So, you know, he wanted to partner with that deal. We have other ventures that we're doing together with that particular individual. So, you know, we were able to kind of that deal kind of just landed in our laps. But yeah, so that's the makeup of the portfolio right now. We got a one 3-unit, 1 4-unit, and then a condo.
My question for you, I love when married couples come on the show. My question for you though is, how did you guys both get on the same page? How did you get to the point? Because sometimes it's not always like that. Sometimes the woman's very passionate about it and the guy's like whatever, and vice versa. So
yeah.
And also my next after that question, because I don't want to lose it, is I want you guys to tell me about what your name means.
Okay.
So as far as being married, so he was on it like way before I was. So before we got our first deal, it probably took, I would say, like an additional year for me to hop on before like both of us like was really like, okay, like let's jump in. But we both experienced like entrepreneurship endeavors like pretty much our whole lives. Like my mom owned a daycare, you know, they had a catering company, so like was always kind of exposed to, you know, making money on the side. And I know like with him, he has a few of his aunts who are like real estate agents and who also have had a couple of deals themselves. And so, you know, when he started listening to like Bigger Pockets, and I'm like, you know, we drive a lot, like we travel a lot. You know, before my
5 hours getting home from work one day.
Yeah. And like me myself, I had like an hour to an hour and a half, you know, commute one way. So easily we're spending, you know, 3 to 6 hours a day just getting to and from work, or even like our family, most of our family's in Delaware. And so we would always, you know, that's about an hour or so away from us. So we're driving back and forth there. So, you know, sometimes like I'll be driving and he'll like turn off my music and I'm like, okay, like what is happening? And then like people start talking and I'm like, what are these people talking about? So I'm like, okay, like this is kind of whack. Like, this is kind of boring because I'm trying to like drive. And so then after a while, a few times of doing it, I was just like, okay, like let me be a little bit more open about it, especially at the time he was also like investing in the stock market as well. So I was like, okay, like this is taking a lot of time, but like let me figure out, you know, what this actually is because he's so interested in it. So when it came to real estate, it was kind of like very easy for me to kind of like, okay, it makes sense. It's a lot of actually like young people who are out here doing this. So, you know, we can still do this and like work our 9 to 5s, but eventually we may not have to. You know, I like the idea of, we don't have children yet, but when we do decide to have children in the next few years, of actually like being able to like spend time with them, because there's a lot of things going on with a lot of different daycares, you know, because like I said, my mom owned a daycare. So to me, it's like being around your kids adds a lot of value to just like being a family. And so, you know, I eventually, you know, jumped on board. And then again, like Darian said earlier, figuring out what your strengths and weaknesses are. And so with this business, we're able to kind of like balance each other out. And so like Darian's like very like detail oriented, like, you know, like everything has to kind of like be, you know, all T's crossed, all I's dotted. But I'm like big picture, like, oh, okay, like I can see like, you know, the bigger picture, the bigger scale of things. And so with that, we kind of like balance each other out with the business. But it's really all about, again, like if as a married couple, like being a wife, if your husband is really interested in something as opposed to like, oh, like he's spending all this time doing this, which I was like that before. But then it was kind of like, okay, let me be open-minded and kind of see like why he's like so interested in this particular topic. And then it also helped once we actually started seeing people who actually look like us, who were doing it as well. And so, you know, once we kind of like seen that, we started networking, talking to people, you know, social media is very powerful. And so like thinking about ways we can utilize social media to kind of get involved. And so, yeah, that was kind of how, you know, as far as that part is concerned, how that goes.
And I want to make a good, like, okay, so, and it all, I think it really came back to like, really, you know, who Ashley is as a person, who I am as a person, right? So like, I quickly found out that I wasn't as passionate about my career choice. Ashley, however, she loved what she was doing. So like, you know, I had to like kind of like tell her or explain to her like what will be the benefit of actually going down this path, right? Like, you know, like she knows like, okay, yeah, like Darian's entrepreneurial, but like he's like I've tried like, I don't know, I've created other businesses that, you know, didn't something didn't pan out to like what I thought it was. Like I felt like at other businesses. And then like even like comes to like when it came to stocks, like I made a lot of money in stocks and then I lost it all. Right. So like I had to like actually like, you know, break things down as far as like, you know, well, this is the bigger picture. Right. So this is like something that we can leverage so that way, yeah, you can do what you're passionate about, but you don't have to, you won't be obligated to do that. Right. You know, if we want to start a family in the next few years, you know, how does that look like with us, you know, having to have these obligations of going to work every day, and not having a choice of how we can choose our time, how we can spend our time. And is that something that we would really want? Right. So, you know, kind of like doing some, you know, forward planning as far as like, okay, well, what do we want later on in life? And how do we want that life to, you know, be? And what do we got to do now to get there? So, you know, when I kind of like just kept talking to her, and really, I mean, it really started just from like, yeah, just playing podcasts around her, like, or stuff that I knew, like, I was like, yo, this is going to resonate with her like so much. Like, let me just like, I'm just going to play it like next time we're in a car or something like that. Just like dripping like all this, like this little, like stuff that I will find out, like, oh, babe, like this is, yo, you can actually live for free. She's like, live for free? How can you live for free? I'm like, oh, check out this podcast. And like slowly but surely, she started to like see the vision. She started to see her own vision as far as, oh, well, you know what? Like, yeah, in 5 years, I want to do X, Y, and Z, or be able to, you know, start a business that, you know, because she actually works in higher education with pretty much helping like minorities get into college, helping people from our community get into college, and like knowing
the financial risk along with going to college.
Exactly, right. That's not the choice. That's a choice that most of us have been sold on in the past few years. That's not necessarily your only choice, and that's not necessarily what's best for every individual. So, you know, that's something that she's really passionate about as far as like career development type work with people from our community. So really is like, you know, she's passionate about what she does. On my end, you know, it's more of a 9 to 5. Like I'm not nearly as passionate about it. So early on, I think that really like manifested in, you know, just having more drive initially. But now, like literally, she goes as hard as I do. So it's like it's really good because, you know, when I'm up, sometimes, you know, she may be resting, and then vice versa. We can kind of like balance each other out. Sometimes when I don't feel like necessarily doing as much, she can carry the load and like, you know, continue to push the ball forward towards our collective goal.
Yeah. And then the second part of the question was what our name meant.
Well, before you answer that, I just want to just point out like how key that was, because what you said, I don't want to just like drift over that. Like that was a whole word. What you were saying as far as, you know, and speaking to the married couples, or it's speaking to the single folks, speaking to everyone, right? Ashley, you said, I need to wait a minute. Let me take a second and see why my husband is so diligent and learning about this and figuring it out and what this really means. And, you know, and it wasn't anything selfish, like it's to push you and your family forward, right? Like, even though it was like, okay, this is boring at first, like it's a reason why he's so into this. And then you also said, I think, it's a great thing that you mentioned, Darren. You were like, well, let's just even take a look at who we both are as individuals so we can be stronger together. Like, okay, you are like this because of this, or you're like this because of this. You know, I hated my job. She loved her job. So maybe, you know, I got the vision first. So I wanted to make the jump first, but also while still respecting each other's decisions to be who you are individually, and then figure out how you can come together as a collective front. So I didn't want to just move over that, because that was really powerful.
They also said two things that have been said on the show before that are like my favorite points. And one was like, you got to support your husband. And the other was that they balance each other out, which is kind of like what Charm City Buyer said at once upon a time, when they said when he's going, she can kind of chill, and vice versa. When she can't do it, he can kind of step up. So a lot of power in that as well.
Nice. Shout out Charm City Buyers, by the way.
Shout out to them, for sure.
Shout out.
Yes. But yeah, even like as far as like, you know, a lot of people say, oh, well, like I'm single, or like I'm by myself. I don't have any, you know, I don't have a way to kind of like do this. Like you have a husband, or, you know, somebody who's willing to kind of like, you know, take this entrepreneurship journey with you. But it's like, you know, that shouldn't stop you from moving forward. So if you don't want to do it by yourself, you know, and there's like a friend that you would want to do this journey with, if there's a family member, if, you know, a colleague that you trust that you want to take this journey with, there are ways for you to still kind of do the same thing. Like, you know, I really see that we can build this thing together. So yeah, like, let me try to drip this information on you. Let me, you know, try to let's try to like learn and grow together. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, the person that you're going to be spending the rest of your life with, even though I definitely would say that it is a plus in taking the journey together. But that shouldn't stop you from doing whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's real estate, whether it's investing in the stock market, whether it's, you know, you guys are doing whatever kind of joint venture together. It shouldn't really stop you because you're not married. There's other ways to get involved.
Exactly. Like in real estate, like you have to work with all different types of people from all different types of fields. So like I think people who will say, you know, well, I don't have a partner, I don't have someone to build with, and they will use that as an excuse for them not to take like action. I mean, at the end of the day, like people will make any excuse for them not to take action. And like who, like, you know, you can like be like woeful, like, and like dwell and like pity like for yourself, like, you know, all these excuses. But at the end of the day, like, what can you do, right? Like I was making like tons of excuses. I mean, I said, oh yeah, I'm just doing research right now for like 3 to 6 months or whatever. I mean, really, like I could have like start taking more action, right? And it wasn't until like I started taking action, even if it's like a baby step. Like it doesn't have to be like, oh well, you know, if you don't know how to, you may have an idea of what you want, you know, where you may want to end, but you may not necessarily know how to get there. And no one knows like where, like the actual journey and the route that they may take to get to that like ending final destination, right? And that destination may even change. So really the only thing you can do is just to take action and take a step and take continuous actions and continuous steps until you start to see like progress, until you start to get to where you want to be. Right. So, you know, take action, you know, don't make excuses.
Take action, figure out the rest later. So my question is, of course, it's going to be a 2-part question, which is catching up on the name question we didn't answer yet. And also I want to talk about Baltimore. I want to talk about just if you can kind of update us on like just the ongoings there. It's so cool because like the spotlight got shined on Baltimore, but then all these different groups started popping up like, oh, we're doing this in Baltimore. We're doing that in Baltimore. Do you want to do this in Baltimore? So I always feel like just because the talk is necessarily bad, it doesn't have to stay that way. The things can change. So the name and then Baltimore.
All right. So the name. So Kemetic Capital. So really, we were thinking about like the ancient Kemetic civilization back in Egypt, like ancient times, and we're like like they were the ones who actually like laid the foundation for pretty much everyone to be where they are right now. And so with that, we were like, hey, like Kemetic Capital. And then Darian was like, oh, well, like, let's think about like a tree. So Kemetic Capital pretty much means like, planting the seeds. So that way, you can kind of sprout out and, become that tree, become the thing that you want to be. And so that's kind of like where we kind of got it from.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So yeah, play off the ancient Kemetic civilization and everything that they were able to achieve, like their advancements in science, technology, which really a lot of that stuff we still implement today, or we still use today. And it's kind of like we wanted to build a company that was more than just a company that just has like our main agenda is just to make money. Like we want to actually have a social impact in Black communities, in our community. We don't want to just make money off the backs of our people without giving anything to our community. That's not how we do business. We don't want to do business with people who their end game is just to make the most money, especially off the back of Black folk. That's not us. So Kemetic Capital really, that's what we're rooted in. We're rooted in community, providing affordable, safe housing for people in the community, hardworking people in the community who have been slighted for years by landlords who don't want to fix anything. They don't want to give. They don't want to. Okay. So everyone knows what a slumlord is, right? So they're everywhere, right? So it's not necessarily that they're only in Baltimore. But unfortunately, you see that in Baltimore, and you see people living in conditions that are subpar. Right. So we want to set another example because there is another way to do business, and you can do that. You can give people nice housing, affordable housing, and you can still do well for yourself financially. So, yeah, that's KCM. Yeah, that's us.
100%. I love it. Let's talk Baltimore. I wanted to get somebody on the ground in Baltimore because it's one thing to read the headlines, see the pictures. What is the reality of Baltimore and like as we are now?
Yeah, so Baltimore is a city of neighborhoods, right? So like I think somewhere in the 70s, 80s, 60s, something like that, they split up Baltimore into like all these different neighborhoods. So there's over 200 neighborhoods in Baltimore.
Over 200, 300 neighborhoods.
Yeah, wow. There's a lot, a couple hundred. Like it's crazy. So
redlining.
Yep. And it started redlining and all that. Which so yeah, you can like do read up on all that. You kind of see like the history of Baltimore. And really why Baltimore is where it is today, right? Baltimore is where it is today based off a series of decisions that were made, albeit 100 years ago, 50, 60, 70 years ago. Where we are today, we take a more optimistic look at Baltimore because we're in it for the long haul, right? We want to like build a solid portfolio in Baltimore. And so our time horizon is, 20, 30 years plus. Even well beyond just us actually being here. Mm-hmm. So we think that from what we see in Baltimore, there's key developments going on in North Baltimore, West Baltimore, East Baltimore, South Baltimore. There's a lot of development work and a lot of big money moving into the city. Right. So whenever I see propaganda, media that's kind of shaping a particular narrative of Baltimore, I juxtapose that. I put that right side by side with what I'm actually seeing as far as the money that's coming into play. Right. Mm-hmm. So then I ask the question, so, is there an agenda to this message? Right. Are actions aligning with words or are they not? And if not, who stands to benefit from that? So I say that to say,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Because literally Chicago, it's been the same thing for years. Chirac, all these killings, all of this. But there's a brand new multi-billion-dollar development that just got approved through, like, yes.
I'll never forget.
I feel you.
I remember they went through like this summer. And they were talking about Inglewood, California. And they were talking about how bad it is there, how many deaths are there, and all the newspaper, all in the news. and then you look up and they're building a stadium and they're talking about building more stuff there. And one thing I realized, like I used to work for this Jewish real estate developer, and whenever we put in an offer on something, we would always, like, the offer and the conversation around the offer is like, this property, it has restrictions, it has limitations, you can't do this, you can't do that. And we would beat down the value on it so we can get a deal. And so it's kind of like the same kind of strategy. They're beating down the value so they can get a deal, so they can justify people coming in to then build up that community. I think we have to see through that. And ideally we start participating in that. And so, like, that's what's so cool about Baltimore. Have you been in touch with any of the groups that are out there? I know Charm City BRRRR is looking to do some stuff. I know there's some other groups out there. There's like these, I guess there's like this Haitian organization that's doing some things. What have you seen in regards to people participating in the redevelopment?
Okay, so as far as people participating, I mean, yeah. So with Charm City BRRRR, we actually started in their Next Gen program, which really gave us like a solid foundation in understanding Baltimore, understanding the players in Baltimore, understanding the resources available in the city. So that really helped us. So yeah, so to answer your question, yes, there are these groups who are actually making real progress on a grassroots level to actually get people into real estate, get them invested in properties, and doing it at a collective scale, right? So that way it's not just one investor buying in a particular area or buying a particular property. We're doing it as a group in order to better develop these communities, so that way we don't see Baltimore doesn't become the next DC, or doesn't become the next New York, in some of the boroughs. So like we do see these groups pulling people together, and I think only time will tell, right? Only time will tell. I think we're in an amazing time right now to be young, Black, and gifted. I think it's an amazing time because we have opportunities to help rebuild our communities. And, there's no, only time will tell, how our efforts today will impact tomorrow. But we are very optimistic just because we see all different types of people from our community actually rebuilding in our community. And we're always out here networking with people in the city, investors in the city. So it kind of like, our perspective is unique in that, we see a lot of people who may not necessarily be on social media, that may not necessarily like have like high visibility, but they are still making significant gains. So it's really dope. It's really dope.
Yeah. Charm City BRRRR, as far as the Next Gen program, like honestly, there's a lot of people out there who do take advantage of people like, oh, like buy my program for, come to my free seminar first and spend about 3 hours there. Right. And then they have their booth set up and their fancy backdrops and all of this. And they're like, yeah. So you get to the table and it's like $15,000, $20,000 to sign up for like a weekend program. And it's just like, well, the $20,000 that I take for this program, I can invest that into an actual property. And then even with like Charm City BRRRR and the Next Gen program, what they're asking for is like not even close to that. And so it gives you the wiggle room to actually go ahead and make your first deal or your second deal or your 10th deal or wherever stage that you're at. They really kind of like help you through every single stage from conception through to the end.
You're gonna recoup that cost of your first deal.
Recoup that
like
cost.
if you don't know anything about like running numbers on properties, if you don't know anything about finding contractors, if you don't know anything about finding lenders, if you don't know anything about anything or you very little about a little, it is literally will save that money you'll recoup. So like you always got to think we're in this business to thrive for the long term, right? So the only way to do that is to make investments in yourself. And we found that going through the program, partnered up with Karen Khalil was the best way for us to get experience, get mentorship from someone who's actually has achieved what we're trying to build in that particular area, in that particular community, right? So as part of that, we're able to leverage their resources, whether it be people, literally, whether it be lender, whether it be contractors, so that way we can get to our end goal, right? So like, anytime anyone talks about like reinvesting in yourself, always ask yourself, it's not the cost necessarily. If you don't spring your rent money if you don't got like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, right, that goes to be said. But like, if you have the cash and you want to get invested and you're here to do it for the long term, for the long haul, then you have to make those investments. If you want to grow the scale, if you want to just learn and like learn the hard way, you just want to spend the money anyway, just to say that, oh, well, yeah, I learned from the school of hard knocks. I mean, cool, right? I mean, but that's what's fortunate. That's why I'm thankful about like the social media today, is that we have people who actually have track records, who are helping and bringing people up alongside them along the way, right? So like, you don't have to go and learn this from scratch and learn it like from nothing. Like, you can actually go out, find someone who's doing what you want to do, and you can actually sign up for their course, sign up for whatever they have, and literally you can plug into that individual. Like 9 times out of 10, if you buy something from anybody, they'll be more inclined to like accept your phone call or respond to you on an email, right? Yeah. So like, really, to have access to, people and resources, I mean, you got to weigh that against the cost. And 9 times out of 10, as long as you do your vetting carefully, it should weigh out. You should recoup that relatively quick.
Definitely. Yeah, and I love the fact that you pointed that out, because I'm pretty sure we've touched on this in previous episodes. Actually, even in my interview that I did with Charles on mentor hacking, right? So first of all, you see, y'all are nodding like, yeah,
we should put that on a shirt.
Right. But you invested in yourselves, obviously, and you didn't break the bank, but you saw that it was necessary, and what you got on that return was way much more than the investment, right? And I think that's a recurring thing here. Like, we all are saying, invest in yourself. You don't have to spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, but maybe $5,000 or less. Maybe it's a $1,000 program, or $2,000 or $3,000. Save up, don't break the bank. But especially when it's with people in your community, people who look like you, people who, like you said, thank God for social media. We can now see like social validation, who's out here doing this for real, right? Mm-hmm. Who's just not popping up on the computer and saying they sell a program, but we don't never see them out doing a real estate, right? So we can use social media to that advantage. But you guys, went ahead and invested in yourself, and now you have access to mentors, contractors, I'm sure government contracts, because they're big on not-for-profits and funding and things like that. So I know they're big on like OPM and grants and things like that, and even grants for businesses, right? Like, that's a whole nother world. So you guys have access to all of that, which is amazing. So
before you go, I want to say that it's not one of the things I really dislike is when people DM me about how to make money, but they never bought any of my products. But what I'll say is this, is you don't even have to buy the expensive stuff. Just buy something. I know they have a shirt, they have a book, they have a little intro program. Show some sort of willingness to invest.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to, it's kind of like, it's like borderline disrespectful. It's like, bro, like, I worked for this. I invested in myself to get to this level, and you just want me to just like give it to you for free. And then if I don't give it to you, then I'm not for the culture. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of people. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there like that. A lot of people, and back again, right? You got to think how you want to do business. I mean, people. If you support someone, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be willing to support you. Right. So if you're hitting people in the DMs and you're asking all this stuff, you haven't even supported them, like, don't be upset when they say, I don't got the time, because they probably don't really have the time.
Yeah. Right. Right. So what is so you guys are, you've really gained some traction for only having bought your first property 2 years ago, which is amazing. And obviously that's from you, like you say, you obviously spent money and invested in yourself, but you also took the time to educate yourself, listen to podcasts. I'm sure you showed up to networking groups, seminars, workshops, conferences, read books, meetups, all of that, right? So what does the next 5 years look like for Kemetic Capital?
Next 5 years. So that's a very interesting question, right? we recently started doing Airbnb models. So unfortunately, the Baltimore city's going away with that. They just passed legislation that prohibits Airbnbs in the city or restricts them heavily. Yep. So thankfully, we may be able to operate the one that we have now, maybe not. But regardless, we're going to be developing the community. We're going to continue to do more deals, continue to put people from the, aside from the short-term rentals, have people still in traditional leases, traditional long-term rentals, and start to do more development work, working and strategically partnering with key individuals. One of which being CCB, Charm City Buyers. So, we're going to continue to build in Baltimore City. Inevitably, we want to do this full time. So that way we can, stop the 9-to-5 grind and then start a family. That's our why. That's why, we do all this crazy stuff, and we're always tired. But, it's going to pay off, right? That's what they say. So we're in the crux of it, in the grind daily. So for everyone out there that's still in the grind, just know, you're not alone. Keep pushing, keep pushing, keep building. So yeah, for the next 5 years, continue to acquire more units, continue to develop, continue to build,
and build the network, continue to find people who are like-minded individuals looking to build as well.
Yep.
And yeah, just continue to do what we're doing on a larger scale. So
yeah, so if you're looking at this in Baltimore, hit us up. If you're interested in the CCB program, Next Gen program, definitely hit them up. We probably need a link. Maybe see if we can work out some type of discount. I don't know if Kieran could.
Right.
Well, we're not wrapping up. We're not wrapping up just yet. But I do want to point out, like what you said, as far as you guys were just starting to do Airbnb, and but then the rules changed, and a mentor of mine instilled that in me very early on. He said the rules may change, but the game remains the same. Right. So at the end of the day, like you guys got into Airbnb for cash flow, right? That's why almost everybody gets into Airbnb is for cash flow. So even though the rules may have changed, they sign into effect that bans Airbnb, you guys aren't, throwing your hands up and walking away and just going back to your 9-to-5s. And you're like, no, okay, well, how can we switch our strategy and switch our model to where we can still reach the end goal? Where we can still play this game, which is the cash flow game. So I think I didn't want to, jump over that either, because I think that's important, because so many people get stuck or, and then they like, well, they stopped me. It's like, do something else.
Right.
Well, I feel like
to invest in real estate. It's not like, oh, somebody tells you. I feel like that's a big thing with people. Like they hear one no and it's like they stop. Yeah. It's just like, well, research actually shows that like most human beings hear the word no 8 times on average versus the word yes. So it's like go through at least 8 no's like before you like actually give up. So like there's always going to be another way. So with real estate, okay, you can't do short term, but then there's long term, and then there's all these other programs like the assisted living. There's program for homeless children and college students. Like there's all these different ways that you can get involved. So never let it no stop you, because that's basically what we're doing. We're using that cash flow to prepare us for that next step.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before too. It's not about our community lacking resources. We're not being resourceful. We've talked about that plenty of times before. So just figuring it out. Yeah.
I think you stole that from me.
Oh, did I?
No, but what's interesting is it kind of resourcefulness and like having multiple exit strategies go hand in hand. And it's really dangerous to underwrite a deal based off of one exit strategy. So your only exit strategy can't be Airbnb, because that's an exit. You have to say, okay, well, like worst case scenario, can we still afford this property if we do a long term, or if we have to rent it out room by room? And so like that's just a word to the listeners is when you're doing a deal, you have to analyze it from multiple exit strategies. You have to analyze it to make sure that it makes sense, not just as a BRRRR. Everybody's really hype on BRRRR these days. So if your only exit is a BRRRR, you might want to be careful, because, you don't want to get stuck when the banks tighten up and you can't refi. So it's like, how does that deal make sense other than just the BRRRR, or just the wholesale, or just the whatever? So just be intelligent investors, not just investors only. I had a question, because we only have a little more time, but I want to talk about you guys' rehab project.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about purchase price, rehab costs, and what your plans are for that one?
Yeah. So for that one, our purchase price was $160K. That was it was like $5K in closing costs. So what?
Auction.
Yeah, it was an auction. We bought that through auction, so it was like $165. Our rehab, we initially estimated like I think it was like $100K. We're over that by like 20%. So we're like 120, 125. So one word to listeners, whenever you're running your numbers, be conservative. Like you're gonna have to pay regardless. Like that extra whatever the difference was, extra 20K, 25K, that came from like our personal savings and like working. Like it ain't not like you're gonna have to pay anyway. So if you shortchange yourself in the beginning, you're gonna have to pay the cost anyway. So there's no point in like lying to yourself with numbers. But this was our first like significant rehab. Right, so it was a learning process. And by the way, Kiera told us that we should re-examine our budget. We were too headstrong. We didn't want to listen.
And we were like, oh no, we're going to get this 4-unit property that was built in 1879 done in 6 to 8 weeks. Like, now we are in month 8.
Month 8, but we already finished 3 units. The 4th unit is we just got drywall up. So we're going to finish mudding this week. We'll paint this week. Then after that, we'll get our finishes in, and then we'll be done. We'll be wrapping this one up.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's how that's going. And it really, like, this process with the rehab has really taught us, like, okay, the importance of fire fast, hire slow. We went through, like, 9 different electricians. We went through a few different contractors. So, like, again, like, you're going to end up paying for this stuff eventually. And so like having a strong team and really strong processes, so that way your business can still run when you're not there. Because I mean, right now, right, like we're in Arizona, it's a 3-hour time difference, but because we have processes and we do now have a team, mainly working with our brothers who are GCing the deals, and they are pretty much working with subcontractors to get a lot of stuff done.
Like actual like blood brothers, like related brothers.
Yeah, they're blood brothers. Yep. So my twin and then her younger brother. So we found a way to actually get them involved in a lot of the work. We work with a bunch of different like GCs, a bunch of different subs. Like that's the thing. Like when you start off anything, right, you're not going to be as efficient at it the first time around, right? But the more you do it, you'll start to get better, right? So that's exactly what happened to us. When we first started off, we didn't have a whole list of reliable people. So like over time, these past 8 months, we've really been focusing on building a team. So that way it really is not only about this deal. We want to do business with people who want to do 20 deals with us, 100 deals with us. It's not about the first deal. So we've really been like focusing in on that this year. That was part of our goal. So thankfully, that's one of the things we really knocked out the ball.
So you're all in for 280. What's it going to be worth?
400. Well, 400 to 425.
Nice. What's the plan for that? Are you guys going to refinance it, or actually, how did you fund the deal? I think that's probably a better question. How did you fund it?
Yep. So all right. So we funded the deal. We did So we used BRRRR on the first 3 unit. And we were able to pull out like 30K. We needed like around 60K to close. So then I went to a friend of mine's and I asked him for a loan. And actually I asked him to partner with me on a deal and we could just split it like 50-50. But he hates real estate. Like he'd rather just like go out and buy a business. So like he was like, you know what, like nah, but I'll give you a loan, but like I'm not gonna I don't want to like have any part of the real estate. Or of the equity of the property. So we got a loan from him. And it was a really good deal for him. Like he's getting like 20% return on his money. He gave us like 30K. So really like that's going to eat, into our profits. But really, at the end of the day, once we do the refi, we'll get all our money that we put in down. We'll be able to pay off our private loan with my friend for the 30K. And then whatever we get back, we'll just, we'll probably put it to the next deal. But, really we'll be all in with with little cash just from the BRRRR method. But again, this is assuming that we can get the ARV, right? We still got to finish this property and we still got to close before like anything screwy happens, or anything like anything changes. So that there is a real risk to doing a burst strategy. So make sure you run all your numbers conservatively. Don't overpay in today's market. You'll be better off just waiting, stacking cash, and then when everything goes crazy, then you can buy it cheap. So it's like you're in this for the long haul, right? If you're trying to get in real estate, you got to be in it for the long haul. Don't just try to go for the quick buck.
Right.
Yeah, and depending on how long your rehab takes, like your ARV can change from when you bought the property to when you are finishing it. So, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months later, like the ARV could be different. So you have to be checking that along the rehab process and watching the market and seeing what happens with it because, like you said, things can change. And then, obviously having different exit strategies will help in knowing that. But that's good. I like those numbers. Sounds like a slam dunk deal. And the numbers sound very much so like Chicago. So I'm gonna have to come and see what y'all got going on.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Rashana, she has big money.
Let us know. Hey, always looking to partner, always looking to build.
I don't have any money. That's why I use everybody else's.
That's why we gotta do it together.
Exactly.
Right. So I'm gonna hit you with the wrap-up questions, and so here we go. Who is somebody that you look up to and why?
Really, man, for real, yeah, I'm gonna say my mom, just because my mom was a single mom. She raised three men. She had to move away from her family because I'm originally from North Carolina, but my mom moved to up north to find work. She's always been a go-getter. She always takes action. She's always been a woman of action, not of excuses. So man, shout out to moms, man.
Cool.
Shout out to moms.
Probably have to say, she could probably hear me, but probably my mom too. We've been through a lot, but really one thing that she's taught me is that, no matter what, no matter, who your friend circle is, no matter who, you're in relationship with, to make sure that you are okay and that you can provide for you. Because if you can't provide for you, you can't do anything else for anybody else anyway. But always be loving, always be open and care about people and things like that. So, and then again, she was also an entrepreneur for a good amount of my life. So really, again, she's been through a lot. I told her she needed to write a book. But she's really one of the main reasons why I'm the woman that I am today. And so big ups to mom.
Love it.
What is your favorite business book or real estate book?
Okay. All right. So business book, I would definitely say The One Thing. I just finished that this week. I listened to it in Audible, but it was really good.
I did too, yeah.
Yeah, man, it's gold. It's gold. And it really when I first got started in real estate, that's all literally was just, okay, let's call an agent, right? So really just focus it in on, what can I do today? What can I do that I can take action on? What's the one thing I can do right now that will make everything else easier or not needed, right? And you can change that question to match anything, whether it be relationships, whether it be business, whether it be your spirituality, anything. So really focus it in on one. What are aligning your priorities with your daily action and giving significant time in a day to actually focus in on making those actions. So yeah, man, right now that's it for me.
Yeah, I would say How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That's a really great book. It really hones in on how basically building relationships can kind of help get you to where you want to be, but also get them where they want to be. So it's a two-way street. Everybody's benefiting. So I definitely think that that's a great book overall, especially, for what we're doing.
What do you think sets apart successful investors from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
I think people who aren't afraid of no's. You're gonna get no's. No's don't even matter. No's doesn't matter. And failure, people who don't really fear failure. Failure is a social construct, right? What does that even mean? There's take action. I think people who take action consistently and go out and chase their goals, I think that normally they are happier in life. Like, if you work at something hard enough, eventually you'll probably get it. If not, at least you were on that journey, and 9 times out of 10, that journey is worth the fight in and of itself, right? And it's better than the alternative, right? So like, my baseline is like working a 9 to 5 for the next 4 years. So hey, I'd rather keep going down the real estate journey, and who knows what may happen. And this journey in and of itself over these last few years has been so valuable to me that, it's all worth it. And we're still in the grind, you know what I mean? So like, I think people who really don't take no's for answer, and that's a couple things, but I think really people who aren't afraid of failure, I would say, and take consistent action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also, I guess, analysis paralysis. Like, a lot of people, I think with social media too, like, oh, there's so much information out there. Like, oh, you can Google all these things, but like, you've been doing that for 5 years. Like, we was talking about this, like, a while ago, but you're still in the same spot. Right. So really just taking action, what is really going to like light that fire under your belly for you to like get up, go out there, go get it. I think a lot of people think that just because they're learning and getting that education, that means that they're doing something. And especially I think in our community, we think a lot of times like we go to college, we get these degrees and like, oh, we can go do something. Like, honestly, me working in higher education is not as fulfilling as real estate, because I feel like I actually have a real impact as being a real estate investor. And so, as we're having a real hands-on impact with the community, whereas like with higher education, there's a lot of politics and bureaucracy. Not to say with real estate it's not as well, but it's a little bit more fluid, and you can, again, have a bigger impact. So I think that, once you actually start to take action and see the results of that action, that's kind of like what propels you to keep going. So I think getting out analysis paralysis will help a lot of people get to where they want to be. Take what you're reading and listening to and
implement it, do it,
actually
take
like
action.
Do it, because you only have one life. You only have one life. We all got the same 24 hours. So if you don't act now, when are you going to act?
100%.
That part.
Thank you guys for coming on the show. Any last words, Rashana, before we let them tell us where we can find them?
No, thank you guys for coming on and just talking to us more about your city, the market, giving us that word about, being married and what that looks like in business, and kind of how you guys needed to position your mindsets pretty much to be in a position to win. So thank you for sharing all of that. And with that, so where can people find out more about you or connect with you?
Definitely.
Yep. Yeah. So we're very active on Instagram. So we're at Kemetic Capital on Instagram, and we do also have a Facebook. We're not as active on Facebook because, like, even my personal page, I haven't had Facebook in like well over 5 or 6 years. So I'm just not. I don't know. I'm trying to get back into it, but Instagram is probably our most active place where you can find us. So at Kemetic, KEMETIC CAPITAL, Kemetic Capital.
Oh.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming on the show. Thank everybody for listening to the show.
Yes.
We're doing some great stuff. You guys are doing some great stuff. Rashana's doing some great stuff. Great things are happening in this Black Wealth Renaissance. I'm gonna call it because that's what it is.
Yes, sir.
You guys can this is episode number 117. My name is Charles Oglesby with Rashana Scott and Kemetic Capital, signing off. Make sure I hit the end button.